All right, we're inside of 3 Black Dots, gigantic new warehouse space, which I personally think that they should use to store cars, but that's just me. Shooting some new merchandise that's actually available right now. Link in the description. I'm wearing one of the new shirts that's available. And then we've also got a license plate frame. So if you feel like adding to the decoration around your license plate, you've got that as an option. And it's only gonna be available for like 3 days. So if you wanna check it out, link in the description. You probably don't wanna wait. Some of the stuff like the t-shirts will be available for a little bit longer. They'll just be indefinite, but license plate frames, super limited time. Feel free to check it out. And pretty cool stuff. So anyway, we'll get on to the video, but this is a really cool space. If I knew how to drift and do donuts, I'd totally do them around the poles and probably get yelled at. I've been meaning to make this video for a while, actually. Just for some reason haven't gotten around to it, and so I'm sorry for that. Wanted to just talk about what it's like to daily drive a 911 GT3 RS. Because while obviously 911s are generally a pretty daily drivable kind of car, usually when it comes to the GT cars, people treat that as more of a secondary weekend kind of car, and I didn't want to do that. I decided that I didn't care for practicality and I would just go all out. And it was a bit of a leap of faith in the very beginning. I didn't know if I'd end up regretting making the decision to have this as my daily driver, but now that we're nearly 6 months into it, oh man, what a great choice this thing was. It just makes any sort of driving, even going to the grocery store, like a really entertaining thing to do. I don't mind doing it as much. Not really in normal day-to-day sort of scenario right now. I'm on a canyon drive, and I've got a few people in the group behind me at the moment. We're headed down just from getting some food. Still thought it would be a bit more of an entertaining backdrop than sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic, which is, well, more of the day-to-day scenario you get with driving a car around LA. Let's start off with, well, why isn't this a car that many people would daily drive? I think there are kind of 3 main reasons for that. One is the suspension. It's only got 2 modes, stiff and doesn't move at all. Usually I just drive it around in the regular mode, but you hit this, this button over here if you're on the track, and it'll stiffen up the suspension even more, which doesn't seem to make a huge difference. It's already incredibly stiff. You feel every little bump in the road, but I don't actually mind that. It makes it feel like you're much more engaged in the driving. So you sometimes have to slow down a little bit more for imperfections in the road that in other cars you might just kind of graze over. And so for that reason, there are certainly times when I'm driving around the city and I slow way down, and I'm sure the person behind me is like, what the heck, this dude in the orange sports car is going so slow, why is he doing that? Well, I'm doing it so that I hopefully don't end up bottoming out the car on something. Which leads me into the second thing, which is that the car is very, very low clearance. I have scraped it, but interestingly enough, not usually on driveways. It has a lift, so usually when there's a driveway or a speed bump or something I can see, I can prep, I can get the lift up, I can angle it. It's just that sometimes there will be some little bump in the road, you don't catch it until the last second, your lift isn't up because you're going fast, and you're gonna hit it. But because of that, Porsche did a really smart thing where it's just a really nice, cheap, replaceable piece of plastic that's out there on the front of the car. As opposed to the Ford GT, which I haven't scraped yet, knock on, there's no wood around. But if and when that happens, I'm gonna be very, very, very sad because it's a very pretty, nice, expensive piece of carbon. In this, it's a piece of plastic that if after I don't know, another year or so, I'm like, yeah, all right, I've really worn the hell out of this piece here. I think it's like 300 bucks. You get a new one, pop it on there, it just snaps on with some clips, and you're good to go. And then you can start scraping the new one, I guess, which is why I'm like, yeah, why bother replacing it until I'm going to sell it or something if I'm just gonna end up scraping it again on other things. Third point is more an option because you don't have to have the bucket seats in this car. You can get the comfort, but if you're getting a Porsche GT car and you don't equip the bucket seats, I'm gonna say it's a mistake not to do that. But for day-to-day, getting in and out is really the main issue with these. You don't have a sill really to slide in like you do in the GT or other carbon fiber monocoque kind of cars. There's just kind of a hard carbon edge that you have to navigate around. And in the passenger seat, I've had someone who, well, there's a fire extinguisher down there and it has this clip on it in kind of an inconvenient location. And I've had someone scrape their leg or cut their leg on the clip of the fire extinguisher. So the seats can be, especially if you've never gotten into them before, a bit of a trick, but I'm certainly used to it at this point. I think it's a mistake to equip this car with anything other than the buckets, because the buckets, especially in corners like we're going around right now, oh my God, they keep you so in place. On the track as well. I've been in a 911 that has the comfort seats. It makes it nowhere near as enjoyable to go around corners. In the Portofino that I've got, it's got the standard kind of comfort seats from Ferrari, and I've taken it up this road before, and I feel like I'm kind of sliding around. I'm hanging onto the steering wheel, bracing my legs against the edge of the car, trying to ensure that I'm not sliding all over the place. With these seats, they really hold you in place. It was a bit of a leap of faith because I did just a short test drive with this thing before deciding to get it. And on that test drive, I was like, I don't know, is this seat gonna be comfortable long term? It's a little bit dicey. It's certainly stiff. It keeps you very upright. I'm like, oh, is this gonna hurt after I'm in it for more than half an hour or so? I decided to go for it anyway, and it's fine. These are actually far more comfortable, surprisingly, than the seats in the Mercedes that I replaced. I'll say the C63 RS, the sports seats in those, the most uncomfortable seats that I've ever had in a car. After 15 minutes, my back would be in excruciating pain. I don't know how that's even possible, but it was the case. These, I've taken multi-hour drives and I've been fine. It's not a problem. Sure, after a couple hours, you're like, yeah, I could use a little bit of a break. Not really anything unusual. Also, it doesn't have back seats, but it doesn't really bother me because I might have one passenger, but I never really have to haul multiple people. And it has decent stowage back there as well, because you don't have the back seats. You can actually put some stuff back there. It's great, practicality-wise, for hauling things around. So I don't mind the few things that most people would identify with this car as like, nah, there's no way you would want to daily drive the thing. I'd say the one that wears on me the most is the scraping, because it's still, even though I know it's a replaceable piece, I don't like to scrape, but at least I know it's disposable. It's not a piece of carbon fiber. And when I've seen some images of other folks who've taken the plastic bit and they've replaced it with a nice carbon fiber piece aftermarket, I'm like, oh God, dude, why are you doing that? Now let's talk about the things that are awesome with the car. First and foremost, when it comes to like daily driving, any 911, it feels very small around you. It has a great driving position. You feel very comfortable. You know exactly where you're at on the road. And for me, my house is on the windy, narrow road. And in the C63, and even in the Portofino, even though they're not huge cars, it can be a little bit like, oh, if there's another car coming in the way and there's a parked car on one side of the road, it's like, hold on, let me just get a little zoom here. That's another benefit, you get that sound. Anyway, 911s, it's very easy to feel where you are on the road. They feel very small, and you're not gonna be like, oh God, am I gonna hit this parked car while a car's coming in the other direction? You feel a lot more comfortable with the shape of the vehicle, and it's got great visibility out of all the sides and everything. It's just a very, very easy car to drive. And so I get it with the 911 and the shape and why it's stuck around for how long it has. It's a well thought out piece of machinery, and they've had so many years to work it out and iterate the same design that everything is how it is for a reason. For the most part, it's very purpose built. When it comes to the GT3 RS specifically, I've added the Sharkworks exhaust on there, as you know, but even the stock exhaust is just stoplight doing some mundane tasks, and there's a clear bit in front of you, turns green, you can listen to that. That's a pretty awesome thing to have. Car handles amazingly, as you would expect from a car that has a big wing on it and Cup 2 tires. It's a pleasure to drive. It really is. I'd like to think I'm feeling the aero when I go around corners, but I realize that unless I'm taking corners at probably 100 miles an hour, it's not contributing like a meaningful amount of downforce to actually keeping the car on the ground. That said though, like if I go to Auto Club Speedway and I'm going around the big bank, the aero is probably playing a factor in helping it feel a little bit more stable. So it's pretty cool. And the wing just looks awesome. And then that brings me to like the final thing that's nice about the car, which is probably kind of weird to hear coming from the guy who has like a bright blue Ford GT, but it's pretty understated in that you can't go from point A to point B in LA without seeing a million 911s out there. And so for the majority of people who aren't knowledgeable about cars, they don't really care. They just see it as, oh, this idiot must have just tacked a gigantic wing onto the back of his 911, and they don't really think twice about it. It's only people who are more motorsports oriented, into cars, who see it and they're like, oh yeah, that's a pretty cool car. You might get a thumbs up from someone who's in a car that you would appreciate yourself, that's kind of cool. They go on drives, but not so much that, you know, the average person out there in a Prius is thinking twice about it. On the other hand, like when you're in the GT, you can get people who start driving kind of erratically, trying to catch up, or I don't know, it's like, oh, I better drive quickly and aggressively because it'll look cool to the GT or something. I don't know why people do it, but I definitely notice, like in the GT, people drive way, way, way more aggressively around that car. In this, you get it occasionally, but it's usually from people who are enthusiasts themselves. You know, you'll get it from like a Corvette or a Camaro or something, whereas you'll get that with the GT, but also even somebody in a Prius might be gunning it a little bit to keep up, or I don't know, assert their dominance by passing you on the freeway. It does happen, which is kind of weird, but it doesn't happen as much in this car. All in all, it's been awesome. Stoked to have this as a daily driver. Can't really care too much about the miles you're putting on it. It is what it is, but it's great fun, makes driving places enjoyable, and then I can take this out on a canyon drive like we're doing now, or to the track. It's just so versatile and great. Just have to deal with scraping every now and again, but you know, before I go to sell it, if and when that'll be, it'll probably be for another GT3 RS or GT2 RS. I could daily drive a GT2 RS, I think. I'll just replace it and then get another one. Honestly, pretty locked into having a 911 as a daily driver on into the indefinite future. It's good. All right. Some of that in the track video, but the tunnel always just makes it that much better. Gotta love it. Well, anyway, that's about what it's like to daily drive a GT3 RS as I'm driving through the canyons and not sitting in traffic. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed. I'll try to do more in-car stuff as time goes by. Did go to the track, so hey, you got some of that, even if I wasn't able to talk too much. I'm just not good enough to do that. It's like being able to sing and play an instrument at the same time. Impossible for me to do. So this is about the edge of where I can comfortably talk and drive. So that's where we'll leave it. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Stuff like that. Have a good one.